All right. That's me. Crunchy Data, that's the company I work for. We're Postgres people. And that's where you can find me, the Steve 0. That's a 0 because I'm leet like that. Just to let you know, I'll let you know as we go along. Everybody ready? So the agenda, it's a big one. Ready to write it all down? We're going to talk DevOps and Kube a little, Kubernetes. How many of you are already using Kubernetes? 3, 4, so about half the room, 5, okay. How many of you are actually ops people? Raise your hand really if you're ops, like I need to, okay. How many of you are actually developers? And then those people who didn't raise your hand, what are you? You're like DevOps, so like you're in between? Or you're sysadmins unwittingly because no one else will do it? Is that kind of what you are? Yeah, you're like, oh, I'm a developer, but no one's okay. Good. And then demo. So that's the whole agenda. All right? There's a lot of rules. Get ready for these. You will ask questions. I know they said you should wait to the end. What that just means is I may cut you off because I only have the 45 minutes. So I may say, well, let's talk about that later in the room. But I like questions during the talk because if people are getting lost or have something, and there'll be down times when we're spinning up the demo, when things are spinning up, that'll be a good time to ask questions as well. Okay? And then the other part is to have fun. That's the whole, those are the only 2 rules, right? So nobody be too serious. So why Postgres? Now we're in the real talk. Why PostgreSQL? And I say, seriously, you folks are all brilliant. You're probably all using Postgres currently. Is that true? Yes. Who's not using Postgres anywhere? Right, exactly. So I don't need to convince you to use Postgres, right? I mean, even the JFrog stuff ships with Postgres by default out of the box. So this is a pretty natural fit. But why Kubernetes? So only half of you in the room said you were using Kubernetes. So let's go into a little bit about, so before I was at Crunchy, I was at Red Hat. And I worked on the OpenShift team, which is Red Hat's distribution of Kubernetes. So you get to hear a little bit of why I think that Kubernetes is actually a good thing. Because the main reason is it's because it's the level of abstraction you actually want to be working at, right? Most of us who are doing especially those of you who are developers, who are also sysadmins, you are definitely not working at the level of abstraction you're working at, right? You're reading how to install RPMs and do all these strange configurations and playing with network settings and playing around with storage and all this stuff you actually don't really either know much about or want to spend much time doing. And so I'm going to go through some of the reasons why we love, please elaborate, Stephen, on why this is the right level of abstraction, right? And so first, it works with containers. So you can work with containers without Kubernetes, but how many of you have worked with more than 3 or 4 containers trying to orchestrate them? Has anybody tried that? No, because you're smart, right? Like once you move past running a single container, it goes sideways pretty quickly trying to get everything going. And so Kubernetes allows that. But the other nice part about containers is, and the guy who put, the Red Hat guy who worked on SE Linux and putting it into the kernel, when I was with him at the first DockerCon, he said he doesn't care about all this other stuff with containers. What he loves about containers is we can finally deliver software the way it's supposed to be delivered. It's not just putting down bits on your machine, right? It's not just here's an RPM and now you got bits and now you have to configure and do all this stuff. You actually have running software ready to go inside of a container, right? You say Docker run or you run it and it's all configured. So the good parts about this is it's immutable. So if something goes wrong, what do? Do you have to reinstall and do all that and uninstall and figure out which settings you change? No. You basically just restart the container, right? Because it's ready to run. And the second part is experts can make the container and you can just consume them. Or your IT group can build on top of that container. So it allows for good building. Is this useful to people, this discussion? If everybody's bored, I don't want to keep talking about stuff that everybody's bored. So everybody's good with this? The other nice part is it gives you multiple ways to describe the configuration of your containers with the same concept. So the concepts don't change, but you can choose your language. So you can do YAML or JSON if you want to. How many of you like working directly in YAML or JSON? No, you do? You guys are a rare breed. You can work in Helm. Have any of you tried Helm? Right, so Helm is a nice configuration manager, and it's what I'll show you the Artifactory Helm templates later. And then you can also write in Ansible. Are any of you using Ansible already at your company? Right, so if you already know Ansible, you can use Ansible as a configuration management for your Kubernetes cluster. There's probably other ones too that I'm just not aware of. I haven't been in the ecosystem for over a year, so everything's different now. Software providers can make self-aware packaging. So rather than just delivering containers, you can actually make something called an operator. which includes containers, but an operator knows actually how to upgrade itself. It knows how to scale itself up and down. Like, for example, when you scale up Postgres, can you just spin up new replicas? Yes. If you scale down replicas, no problem. What happens if the master goes away? Is that a simple problem? Can you just spin up a new master again? No. That's a bad idea, right? If it doesn't have all the data, if it doesn't have all the settings. So the operator, and I'll show this to you later, has a way of handling failure in a way that simple containers by themselves cannot. So if you haven't looked into operators for Kubernetes yet, I highly recommend you look into operators. And then this is the part where I say it's the level of another part of the level of abstraction is you install and manage software in a consistent manner. And you'll see this later in that when I install Artifactory and then when I install Postgres, we're working at the same level. I didn't have to go learn how to install Postgres from source or from RPMs, and then what that configuration and where its configuration files were. And I also don't have to do the same thing with Artifactory, like install it from RPMs and learn what its configuration files are and where it stores its secret. It's all the same. So once you learn how to install and manage software in Kubernetes, all your software is installed in the same way. And that's where I'm talking about that level of abstraction. And finally, and this is since a lot of you work with developers, either you support them or you are yourself, Kubernetes gives you a really clear separation of concern. So that last statement comes from my therapist, which is clear boundaries, infinite possibilities. Right? If you remember nothing else from this entire talk, this is what I want you to remember because it'll make you a better human being. And it'll make the world a better place. So if you think about most of the places where you fight within your organization, where do most of them happen? It's where where two groups think they own that thing. And they are the ones who should decide on what's going on. Think about when you fight with your partner, your spouse, your kids. Usually with your kids, they don't understand that the boundary is there and they think they can be there. But it's where there's a shared boundary and it's not clear who's in charge. And the nice part about what Kubernetes does is it makes that boundary pretty darn clear. The person who maintains the cluster can set up the cluster, can specify the containers and all that stuff. And the developers, you can set environment variable, or you can set secrets, you can set environment variables, and you can deploy things, and that's it. Right? You're not going in and touching the networking. You're not going in and changing the versions and containers. Right? The people in charge say this is the software that's approved, and the developers don't actually care because it actually runs for them, and they can just install stuff. So that's all the reasons on why. The Box guy gave a ton of great reasons for Kubernetes as well. This last one is a great reason to sell your developers on using Kubernetes because they can just do the things they want to do without having to muck around with software. Okay, so that's it for the intro. Any questions on that intro? Everybody's going to go home who's not using Kube and is going to use Kube from now on, correct? Okay, good. And what is the one take-home message? Thank you. Clear boundaries, infinite possibilities. Apply that in your life. I'm telling you, I'm divorced, and now I'm with someone for 6 years, and that message has been one of the best messages for marital or relationship happiness you could ever have. All right, so the scenario is Artifactory HA, right? So what you could do, as I said to those people who've come in later, what I said in the beginning is, originally the title said Artifactory or Xray. It's all the same, right? Basically, the way JFrog handles it is, we do the app software, Artifactory, Xray. You're going to give us a database. We can give you one, but if you want high availability, that's up to you. And it's the same process for either one. You spin up a high availability database and just plug it in, right? So I'm just going to show Artifactory today, but the process would be the same for Xray. I don't know if it is for their whole new metadata big suite. I was furiously texting Baruch beforehand saying, hey, does this work the same for that whole big suite? But he never answered. So you count on Artifactory for mission critical work, right? If developers can't get their packages, how happy are they? Thank you. That wasn't a hard question. Actually, for you, I have a sticker for volunteering. Yeah. You're welcome. Oops, sorry. So the problem is, as I just said, not only you want the servers to be HA, but you also need the data to be HA. How many of you have had your database fail underneath of Artifactory? Yeah, and what happens with Artifactory once the database goes away? Everything stops, right? So that's great that you've got like 6 Artifactory servers, but if you don't have database servers behind it that can stay up like that, you're dead, right? So we're going to actually do that today. This is what I just said. So how do we get PostgreSQL to be HA? So I'm going to use Kubernetes and operators to show you the simplest possible way to do this, all right? So crunchy data, that's us. We're going to use our PostgreSQL operator. That's the sticker symbol. This is the hippo. That's our symbol. I like this one because it's judging. And as a New Yorker, I like to judge, right? So demo time. We're going to use, because I'm an OpenShift, I was on OpenShift for so long, we're going to use OpenShift as our Kubernetes distribution, but all of this stuff works in plain vanilla Kubernetes. So you don't need to, it's just the interface won't be as nice, okay? We are going to start from a blank namespace / project. For those who are not using Kubernetes, a namespace is what you do all your work in, right? It's kind of like a sandbox. And in OpenShift, it's called a project rather than a namespace. Cool? Good? Because I want to prove to you that you could do this, and we're going to do it in less than 45 minutes. Some pieces take a little bit. We're spinning up servers, right? But that's a good time to ask me questions. Or we're just going to stand here quietly and awkwardly, and I'll babble on about other relationship hints. So let's get going. All right? Switch. So first, I will show you. Here's OpenShift. Really complicated front end, which I always complained about when I worked there. This is our project or namespace. What's in it? Nothing. Ready? Let's go. So, and here's the Helm chart. I'll show that to you in a bit, though. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is I've already installed the Postgres operator into a Postgres namespace. And the Postgres operator is basically like a little REST service that knows how to manage installing and watching clusters. So I don't want to expose that to the outside world. So I'm going to actually set up some port forwarding to talk to that. Otherwise, I won't be able to talk to it. So here's my command. Yes, you can't see this. That's OK, because I'll show it here. Is that big enough for everybody? Yeah? OK. So what I'm doing here is I just set up port forwarding to a pod. A pod, for those who are not Kubernetes fluent, you can think of a pod as a container. OK, it's more than that, but it's a container in this case. And we've just set up port forwarding to 8443, so we can talk to the operator. So now, is that still big enough? OK, let's spin up a Postgres cluster. And the reason I have a script is because no one likes watching the presenter put in a typo, right? So I'll hit it, and then we'll talk about it. So what I'm saying here is, hey, PGO is our operator command line. We're saying create a cluster, name it a cluster, because I'm really witty. I don't want backrest, which is the backup piece in there. Don't put that in there. And the replica count, I want to have 1 master and 1 replica. And the namespace I want to put it into is Artifactory. And so it's, OK, great. I'm off doing that. So now, if we go look at our cluster, it's already spinning it up. Right? So this is the pod. The A cluster by itself is the master. Is that big enough? No, no one. Can you see that in the back? Yes? No? You're with, OK, good. You're more in my age group, and you don't have glasses on. How about that? Is that better? OK. So the master spun up. The master's running. Notice that the replica did not spin up. Notice how it's light blue? Can you see that? Let me click on it. See how it's light blue? Oops. It's still light blue. Good. It's light blue. That means we've pulled down the container, but it's not ready to serve content yet. So the master was light blue, and then it became dark blue. Yeah?
These are just bare bones Postgres installs with no data, correct?
With no data. We did make a database by default with the same name as the project's name. There is one schema. We put a schema in, but there's no data. Oh, it's just a blank schema. It's just database, no DDL. We haven't done any other DDL on it. And now it's up, right? That's how much it takes to spin up an HA cluster for Postgres. How long would that have any of you spun up HA Postgres before? Yeah, how fun was it? Yeah, and how much did you enjoy reading all that stuff and doing all that stuff?
It's good documentation, but it's tedious.
Yeah. All right, so how does it work? I'll just show you one quick thing. Services in Kubernetes Kubernetes has this concept where there's containers, and then it's going to build a service that you want to talk into a container with, right, into those containers. It's basically a load balance. It's a proxy and a load balancer. Because you don't want to know, if you spin up multiple replicas, you don't want to have to keep track of all those different pods that are spinning up or containers. You just always want to talk through that service, right? And that IP address for that service is guaranteed for the life of the cluster. So we just spun up that service. That got created as well. There's a service for the replica and a service for the master. If I click on the master, you can see that it's routing things to the pod that is the, you probably can't see because that's really small. You can see here, it's routing to that pod, that one pod, the A cluster pod, not the, if I go back here, it's routing to the A cluster pod, right? Not the A cluster pod, not the A cluster dash FPYZ pod. Got it? Is that relatively clear? As mud? As mud? No, not as mud? Good, thank you. All right, so we've got our cluster running. Now, we're going to spin up Artifactory. And again, this is where I was saying things are really easy in the Kubernetes world. So I go to my script. Oh, first I find, oh, Artifactory has a Helm chart. Awesome. I've already added the Helm repo and the Helm command line, and I'm just going to install the chart now. And so we originally were going to do the HA Artifactory, but somehow we couldn't get the licensing team to give me the correct license in time for the talk. So I can spin up HA, I just couldn't get a license for it in time. So we'll just show the single, but it's the same thing with the HA one. Sorry. All right, so I'll paste it and then we'll watch what's going on. So we're saying, you can say upgrade dash dash install, which means if it's there, upgrade it, otherwise install it. And then the rest of the stuff says, name it Artifactory single, use the JFrog Artifactory Helm chart, put it into the namespace Artifactory, and I've got a YAML file where I want you to read all the internal configurations, right? And I didn't show you that. And how are we doing on time? What does that mean? How many? 22 minutes left. If we have time towards the end, I'll show you the YAML files. I've got them here. That I don't know how in gedit to make them bigger. But I've got the YAML files, and we'll figure out how to make the font bigger, and we can go through them if they want. Let me just go all the way through. Well, actually, Artifactory takes a while to come up. What? Yeah. Command plus? No. Not a Mac. Oh, who uses a? I'm all about open source. No. And try and Control plus, Shift plus. No. Yeah? No. No. I'll put it into a different editor. How about that? Let's see, actually, while we're waiting for VS Code to spin up, let's go back over here and show what's happening. So we've started up two different things here, and this is actually an important point. This is another nice part about Kubernetes and spinning stuff up. Like they're using a stateful set, which is a precursor to the operator. We've already spun up the Artifactory. How many of you have spun up Artifactory on your own from the command line? How quick, even though the container's up, what still has to come up? The Java app. Right? So even though the container's up, and that's why it's dark blue, we're still waiting for the Java app to start. So that's why the Nginx pod is showing I'm not ready yet. Because if we go to the Nginx pod, it's actually ready. If I look at the logs for it, it's been up for a while. But if I show you the events, it's hard to see it when I'm all the way. If I show you the events on this one, we're getting unhealthy. So Kubernetes has this idea of liveness probes and readiness probes. And if you do an HTTP one, if you get back a 404 or anything other than 200 to 399, it's going to say I'm not good. So what's the Java app returning at this point? It's either returning nothing, or it's giving like a 500 error message because the app server's not up, it's doing stuff. So Nginx is saying I'm not ready to serve content. I'm not going to start serving content until until the app server itself is actually up and ready to serve content. So this way, why is that good for you? Because you don't sit there and spin stuff up and put it into production before it's actually really ready to show stuff in production, right? It's actually holding off. So let's see if it's done now. It's done. So if I want to see this one, I'm going to leave that one alone. I go to Application, Services. So we have this Artifactory Nginx. Here's an IP address. I could make a route. If we have time, I can make a route, which will have a name, but this is good enough for now.
So what is the Nginx on this?
It's a proxy in front of the app Artifactory. You don't have to think about it, right? You probably read, oh, I should really proxy Artifactory behind something. And you're like, oh, but I don't want to deal with that connector. And that's such a, I don't want to learn yet another software package. This is, again, the experts at JFrog, Ramus, said, I'm going to build a Helm chart that does all the things properly to bring you Artifactory and Nginx all configured, not starting up when the list is really started up. You just install the Helm chart, and I'll make magic happen for you. So it worked. So we just spun up Artifactory. Yeah.
So where are you running this container? Is it the Artifactory container? Did you pull it from Artifactory, or is everything?
The Helm chart knows where to pull it from.
But is it all running in your?
No, this is all running up in a cluster running in Google. So it's an OpenShift cluster that I set up in Google. Well, I didn't set it up. My ops team did because I hate the admin part. I'm a dev person. But I'll take credit for it. I totally set that up. All right, so next, ready? That's not what I wanted to see right now. If we have time. Okay, here's our license. I got the license. But now I have one more Alt-Tab to do. Got to remember that. We're licensed. Let's make a password. Oh, just so you know, if you put in a password that does not pass the if it's weak, it will not let you put that password in. Just to let you know. Someone might have figured that out while they were doing this. I don't have a proxy server. Let's make a generic one because that's the easiest for one to work with, but let's make this one. Let's try one of the new ones. Anybody doing R at their company? No. Yeah, but you're a JFrog. How about anybody doing Docker at their company? But that's not one of the new ones, is it? What was one of the, Conda. Anybody doing Conda, Python? No. What was another one of the new ones you guys announced? What? Go. Is anybody doing Go? Okay, because of him, we'll put a Go repository in there too. There we go. So we're finished. Awesome. Look, we've got all our repositories set to go. So let's go to generic local. Oh, I can't talk to the operator now. So let me just go back. Because I'm going to, if we have time, I'll clean it all up at the end to show you how easy it is to delete everything. So let me go here, redo the port forward. Okay. So here, put in my password. Have you guys seen this screen before? Do I need to make it bigger, or does everybody know what I'm doing? Does everybody know what I'm doing? Okay. Because I just want to upload something generic. So let's go ahead and upload something generic. I've got something in my home directory. Let's clear the screen. Paste this. And then the name of the file is hello swamp.txt. You guys are amazed at my originality, aren't you? Between a cluster and hello swamp. Okay. Uploaded a file. Let's go see it. So we'll go here, generic local, and there's our file. Okay? So have I proved to everybody that this Artifactory repository is working? Okay. Ready? Disaster time. So we've got our, so I've just set up a, so first of all, is that faster than you usually set up an Artifactory cluster? And easier? Okay, so that's it. I hope I've proved why Kubernetes, there's no more discussion about why you should be moving to Kubernetes, right? Because that to me is amazing. All right, but let's go ahead and show you now why you should run at HA. So here I am back in my Kubernetes cluster, and we're going to go to Overview. And we said again, this pod, the A cluster one, is our master, right? If we look at the name again, Here, I'll actually look at the pod, see it's like -669, blah, 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 blah. That's actually going to be the same as this here. So the service routes to that pod. That's our master, right? And the service name for the master is a cluster, because that's the same name as our project. Now, I'm not going to cheat by doing some sort of Kubernetes kill, right? What I'm actually going to do is test everybody here's knowledge. How do I kill a container from within the container? This is just container knowledge. Nice! Sticker for you. So basically, you kill the main process, and the container says, oh, my main process is dead. I need to start over. All right? Restart the container, which is great if you don't have stateful stuff. But is a database stateful? Very much so. So you don't, I'll do this first. ps-auxw. The process for Postgres. Can I make this smaller just so I can see what's going on? Let's do that one more time. Okay, I want to kill this Postgres process, which is 110. ps-9, 110. Now watch what happens. ps, not ps. Where was the pair programming here, folks? Kill -9. And what happens immediately? The terminal is disconnected. That container is dying. If I go back to the overview, here's our A cluster. You'll notice this is no longer ready. That dark blue is it's killing it. That container is gone. Now, watch what's going to happen. Should I spin up? Why we didn't make this master? Actually, this should already be master. Let's see if it's changed it. Yeah. Look what happened to the service. Can you see that? What's it pointing? What pod is it pointing to now? A different one. The operator knew, and if I had been fast enough, you would have seen while that pod was dying, until that pod was completely gone for the original master, it would not have swapped the service. Have any of you had a master die and spun up another master too quickly? Have you ever tried that? It's called split brain in Postgres, where it doesn't know which is the real master and the whole cluster is now hosed. So the operator knows, I got to wait until that thing is completely dead, and then I switch the service over. So this is our new master now. It's using that one as our master, and it should have, by this point, spun up another replica. Right? This is our old one, which is now our master, and this is now our replica. So we have not only did we fail over that fast, but we have another replica in case we fail again. And so just to prove it's still running, I will refresh this page. And it is still running. Okay? How many beepers went off? 0. How much work did I have to do other than killing the pod to make it fail? 0. Right? So for those, especially for those like my friend here, who is unwittingly being a sysadmin, and you as well, I think you were as well, right? Aren't you like half-wittingly a sysadmin? Yeah. This is perfect. No beepers went off. Nobody got upset except for maybe for 5 seconds while the failover was happening, and they were like, oh, it's down. Oh, I refresh, it's back. Right? So we have set, in a couple minutes, we set up a HA availability at the data level as well. Should I scale up my replicas? Do you want me to scale up the replicas? Yes. Does anybody want to see that? Yes? Who said yes? You did again. I already gave you a sticker. Someone else has to speak up. So that's simple. That should be, let me see if I can memorize this one. PGO scale. Is it PGO scale? Yeah, I think so. And then there was a cluster. And it says, are you sure? And I say yes. And it said, great. And then I go back here. And now I have another one that's spinning up. Right? So there's a lot of load. There's a lot of load. I just scale. And if I kill that main one again, it'll keep 2 up at all times now. How about adding do you want to add a bounce, not a port forwarder, connection pooler? Right? So suppose we say, suppose this wasn't even this was just a normal development cluster, because do you see how easy it would be for one of your developers to spin up now an HA cluster? So that when they're actually doing their dev work, they can see what it feels like. They could actually do reads from the replicas and writes to the master, like build the right architectural pattern right from the beginning. Because once you've put the operator in the cluster, anybody can use this. So if I want to add, now I want to add a connection pool. I'm going to add PG bouncer. So all I say is create PG bouncer in that cluster. Does everybody know what PG bouncer is? It's a service connection pool. So rather than connection pooling in your application, you actually spin. Oh, let me show you that it's up first, and then I'll explain it, because then you'll be like, oh, he was just talking, so well, it took forever to spin up. It's there already. Right? So what it is it's a server that runs as a connection pool. So rather than putting it in your app, because if you put the connection pool in your app and you want to change anything about your connection pool, what do you have to do? You have to bounce your app, which may not be a good idea. With this, you can actually have the connection pool outside of your app. And you could make a bouncer both for the replica and a bouncer for the reads and the writes as well if you wanted to. Okay? And you can actually, you don't even have to bounce the bouncer to get it to do connection settings. You can actually make REST calls to it and have it change configurations on the fly. Okay? So that's how easy it was to add it. Or you could add multiple ones and chain them together, whatever. But the point was, there was no, how many instructions manuals did I have to read to do that? One that says how to add the bounce PGO, create bouncer, and then once I've memorized that, I'm done. So that's the beauty of an operator. Okay? So if you're using Postgres for your apps as well, I highly recommend moving to the operator. Right? All right. So I think, oh, you want me to kill it, the cluster? Want to see how easy it is to kill it? Let's kill the database first. And I can show you it's even going to, it takes a little while on this one, but it already made all the PVC claims. For those of you who use Kubernetes, this is how it asks for storage. And it'll even clean up its own storage. So we're just going to say, oh, did I put it in the script? I don't think I did. Nope. For the PGO, it's PGO delete -d -b cluster. So the -d says clean up your data stores too. Because you don't always want to necessarily clean up your data stores, right? The container might be bad, or you might want to somehow get that data back. So what did I do wrong? Oh, right. No, what did I do wrong? PGO delete. Oh, right. I actually want to delete a cluster. Because you can delete the bouncer or whatever you wanted to. So now if I go back here, I'm going to make this a bit smaller. Just because you don't have to really read it. You can just watch what's happening. So you can see it's killed already a couple of the replicas. It's killing the masters. It's killing the master, and it's killing the other ones. They're all gone. My database is gone. Completely gone. To prove it, let's reload Artifactory. And that's where we're going to stay with Artifactory now. Right? And if I go back here, and I look at storage, you can see that most of the storage has been reclaimed. Kubernetes is a little weird about timing and reclaiming storage, but it will eventually all get reclaimed. See, they just got rid of another one of the storages. Should we get rid of our Artifactory now too? How about we do that? Let's do that. So we say helm purge. I think I called it, what did I call it? Artifactory single? Artifactory single. I think this is the right command. No. Oh, helm delete -- purge Artifactory single. And so now if I go back to my cluster again, we're back to our original empty project. So final message on why this makes Kubernetes and operators and Helm charts great is you want to play with Mongo. You're not using Mongo in your company. No, you don't want to play with Mongo. Mongo's disgusting. You want to play with Node. Node's awesome. And so you want to play with Node. You don't have to learn how to install any of that stuff. And you don't have to learn how to clean up after yourself. Right? You have operators, you have Postgres, and then you're done. Right? And you spin it up. Your developers can spin it up. You as the sysadmin can say, here's the containers I want you to use in the Helm chart. And the developer's like, awesome. I don't have to learn how to install all of this. And you're psyched because you're like, I know exactly what version they're going to be using. And I can tell them to set up Postgres HA. So it'll be exactly like I'm going to have it in production. So there's no weird configuration movements. So that's it. We're done. I can do the wrap up. Hold on. And then I'll get questions. Let's just do the wrap up. Oh, it's this one. So wrap up. I didn't animate it. Kubernetes makes your DevOps and developers' life much easier. It was really easy to get Artifactory or Xray to be truly HA, and then the crunchy PostgreSQL operator really helps you level up your PostgreSQL skills. So don't tell anybody you're using the operator. Just start using it and be like, yeah, I'm totally awesome at Postgres. I spent a couple weeks on extra hours doing that, so I'm going to do some comp time at the beach because I worked so hard on learning all that Postgres stuff. Okay? And then there's the slide deck again if you want to come back to the slide deck. And that's how you contact me. And now, and then in the deck at the end, if you do decide you want crunchy stuff, I'm not going to talk about it, but it talks about who Crunchy is as a person, okay? Or as a company. Not really. I am Crunchy. No, just kidding. It's a pretty big company. Any questions? I know, but we have time. If we run out of time. Now? Can we answer it here? Because then I can put it on the video. Please, Dad. Yeah, how many people want to answer questions right here, right now? How many people want to wait until we go to the other room? So nobody. Okay, so the majority wins. Because everybody else is like, I'd really like to go early so I can get myself a snack. You can leave now if you want. We're done with the talk. So it's just questions. Yeah. Okay, so the question was, I've already got Artifactory set up with one Postgres. How easy would it be to actually spin this up and then plug it in? So I don't know how you set up Artifactory. You used Helm as well? I'm not a Helm expert. I think you can do you change your PGO YAML to point to the new cluster. Oh, yeah. So then you'd have to, what you'd have to do is declare a service window, right? Stop writes to the database. You can allow reads, but stop writes. Do a dump, set up the cluster, restore to the new cluster, right? Just to the master, because it'll automatically send everything to the replicas, and then point to the new one.
The thing is, I don't really know what data to publish because I don't even care what's in it.
Yeah, I don't either. So I'm assuming if there's I don't think it should be special. It should just be use a dump and a restore. But there are some great JFrog people here who I'm sure would know what's inside that data. I just run the databases. We don't look at what's inside.
Exactly what you said.
Yeah, you have done that same thing? So that's what you would do. He's done it. So actually, if you have questions, forget the JFrog people, just ask this guy.
Hey, he deserves a sticker, huh?
Oh yeah, he gets a sticker for all the work he's going to do? Yeah, you get a sticker for that. For volunteering yourself to answer everybody's questions. That's so nice of you. God, you're the best. All right, any other questions? Yeah. How am I connecting them?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so I did start up this. You can see my company's beginnings of a cultural guide to Slack. How many of you have Slack at your company? How many find it a source of contention within your company? Because some people hate it and some people love it. So that's what we're trying to do. Okay, so we're on the desktop. I think, Artifactory single, the YAML. So this is the YAML file that I passed in. And then the way I set that up is if you go down here, no, not in the ingress, that's Artifactory. So here we go. We're setting up Artifactory. Where is it? Going. Okay. So, no, that's not it. Where is it? It's after the Postgres. There's the data stores, resources. I upped the op. I gave it more memory. There, just so you know. There's Nginx. Wait, where did the database stuff go? There's this thing. You guys should have been like, there's this thing called Postgres. Okay. Network policy. That's not the right one. 16. Here we go. So first thing we had to do, so people on the video, I'm pointing to the beginning section. I had to set enable defaults. Because this Postgres stanza here, this is for the default one that comes with Artifactory. So you're saying, yep, I don't want that one, right? So that one, then I could have deleted that entire section after that, because all that stuff pertains to the included one. So here, then there's another section called database. And so in there, I say PostgreSQL. And then the host, I point it to the service name inside the Kubernetes cluster. Right? I want to use the name, not the IP. I mean, I could use the IP, but the service name is better. and that service name will always route to that IP address, which is great.
What did I tell you about the questions?
The-
Where they should be.
They're here because I need to show them the stuff.
You can show them the stuff first.
We still have time. I'm not over time.
No, you are now. As of now, you are.
Okay, one more minute. So then the last thing, because this is the last thing I want to show, it's the normal stuff, but here, this is another great part about Kubernetes. My cluster actually made the secrets when I spun up the operator. The operator made the secrets for the username and password. And so now that I say this, as long as I keep calling my cluster a cluster, this will always work. Does that make sense? Because the host is the service name is the same, and this is the same. If I change the name of my cluster, then I need to change this name, and that name, and then everything will still work. But see, again, common operating plane. It's just changing YAML files. It's not and referring to secrets. It's not some sort of weird everything else and Unix sockets and things I don't want to know about. All right, thanks everybody. Now I'll go and answer questions there too, Baruch.